Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? It's Shannon. I just wanted to jump on and connect with all of you this morning because I have a very important message that keeps coming in. So, if you're here with me or if you're watching the replay, I just want you to take a moment and put your hand over your heart. We need to take a couple of nice deep breaths and move into your heart and soul. Okay, so we're moving out of the analytical mind this morning, breathing into the heart and soul. Okay, so take a couple of nice deep breaths, close your eyes if that feels right for you, and just breathe into the heart. Good morning, Ani. Thank you for being here. Okay. It is so important for us to be moving out of the mind, out of the busy mind, out of the analytical mind. You guys, I have seen so many people and been in really close contact with people who are very much in their head and in their mind. And I get it. It's where I come from as well, and where I still occasionally end up. Although we don't have to stay there, okay? Because our mind is ready and wanting to be focused. Our spiritual being, our soul is ready to be ignited. Our heart is ready to be awakened. And I know that for sure, okay? So again, just breathing into the heart and soul this morning, just taking a couple of nice deep breaths to get out of the mind and to get into the heart and soul, okay? And thank you so much for being here this morning. I keep hearing the repeated message of how important it is to get clear about what we want, to get clear about what we're doing here, to get clear about what we stand for, to be as specific as possible about what we are creating and the life that we are living and stepping into. So being specific, being bold and telling the world who we are rather than letting the world tell us who we are, right? Rather than allowing an outside force to dictate who we are. And declare that out to the universe, okay? So not just allowing the universe to deliver to us whatever it is, or being passive about the whole manifestation thing. It's really about declaring and dictating, right? That you have the ability and you are in control of your life and you are co-creating that, right? And I have a story for you that happened yesterday at the airport that I wanted to share this morning that is a real life example of how this all works, okay? So although I've been getting that repeated message, right? Like, we actually need to live it. We actually are out in the world, and then the universe is like, let me just step you through this experience. And that's exactly what happened to me yesterday at the Oakland airport. So I had a flight to get back to Phoenix, and it was a connecting flight to Burbank, which I usually don't do, but it just happened to be how it was time-wise, right? And so got to the airport 2 hours early, grace and ease and flow, taking the BART system in the San Francisco area to get to the Oakland airport. And I was actually not in the San Francisco airport, but in between that area of San Francisco and Oakland. Anyway, and so took the BART. The whole day was like grace and ease and flow, and got there, and 45 minutes before boarding, they canceled the flight, okay? And so as you can imagine, when I got there and understood that the flight had been canceled, when I got to our gate, because I was off having dinner and then came over to the gate, everyone was frantic and in a panic, right? And there was all these people lined up to speak to an airline attendant, okay? So that energy in itself is just kind of chaotic, and there's a lot of stressed out people, right? A lot of business people having to get to where they're headed. And so I got in line, and there was probably 15 people ahead of me. And they had already automatically rebooked some of us. So I was rebooked to the 9 p.m. flight into Phoenix, which puts me in at about 11 p.m., okay? So that was it would be another 4.5 hours at the airport, which was fine. I just wasn't willing to accept that. I just was not willing to accept what the default setting, right, that the airline decided to rebook me to. I just wasn't willing to accept it. And I wanted to see if there was another possibility, right? Okay, so that right there is a huge message for all of us. And so stood in line, finally got up to the attendant. There was another man that was in front of me who was also going to Phoenix. And he got up and all he kept saying to his attendant was, I need an earlier flight. I need an earlier flight. I can't take the late flight. I have business in the morning and that's just unacceptable. And he was stressed and he was a little bit pissed off, right? And so he was next to me at this airline attendant, and I got up to the next attendant and I said, I would like to jump on the 6:20 flight to Phoenix. And if it's full, I want to fly standby. And that flight is number 732. That's what I want. And I was super specific about what I wanted. And so she didn't have to take a moment to see what the next flight to Phoenix was, right? She just got on her computer and she started punching things in. And within like 2 minutes, she's like, here you go, ma'am. Here's your standby. The flight's full, but here's your standby ticket. And I got the first spot on standby. Meanwhile, the guy next to me is still dealing with his attendant because he's stressed out, right? And pissed off, which then makes her not as effective because she's feeling that energy. And so it takes them another couple of minutes for him to get his standby ticket, and he ends up on spot number 2. Do you see that? So clear. I was super clear. I was super specific, and I was bold about what I wanted, and she was super effective about making that happen, right? And so the story goes on to say is that him and I were standing there, and I was jokingly saying, I'm gonna get to Phoenix before you. And we were like having this playful banter, and he was smiling. He's like, well, you know, we'll see what happens. I'm an engineer and I got this business in the morning. And I was saying things like, well, thy will be done. Thy will be done. And, you know, just like all this spiritual stuff, which was kind of making him laugh. And so I ended up getting a seat on that plane. And he ended up getting the second seat on that plane. So we both got on the same flight to Phoenix, right? Totally fine. The difference was between our two processes is that he was way more stressed out through his process. He had way more cortisol flowing through his body. He, maybe had a lower vibration than I had through the process, right? Which then affects everything. Of course, by the end of it, he was laughing and playful and fun, right? And he did say as we were walking down the ramp to get on the plane, he said, I think your luck helped, or I think your luck was a part of that, or I think you had something to do with that. And I just kind of smiled at him and, was like, yeah, maybe. Anyway, do you see this, you guys? Do you see how, like, being clear, being specific, being bold, and declaring to the universe what we want, and declaring when something comes in our path and isn't what we want, we get to say, nope, I've already had that lesson. Don't disrespect me like that by bringing that back into my life, right? And we get to be bold and stand in our truth and say, not this time. You know what I mean? And so it's really about not just being passive and allow the universe to be doing all this stuff for you, right? Or to just be sending it out and not creating any movement behind. It's really about the boldness and the declaring at this point in time. We might have been in a different energy at another point in time in previous years, right? But now it really is about that boldness and the warrior mentality and declaring specifically what it is that we want, okay? So that's the main message here. And I know that we're going to keep getting these life experiences to allow us to hone in on exactly how we move through and navigate that. Okay, because we can say these things all we want, but the real truth and the real, I want to say test, but I don't know if it's test, is when we have these real life experiences that we find ourselves in, right? And then how are we going to move through it that time? And you have to be quick. You have to be on point with it, right? You can't, sometimes like an opportunity is right there and you have to boldly say yes, or there it goes, and then another one will come. But I think that's what's so important too about knowing this is exactly what I want, about being so specific. So when that opportunity is there, you can boldly declare yes to it. Boldly declare your yes. And boldly declare when it's a no. Right? Okay. That's my message today. Thank you so much for being here with me. And you guys, the other thing that I keep working on personally and with my clients is when we find ourselves in the monkey mind, when we find ourselves in the obsessive thinking, when our mind is freaking out of control, we get to do something about that. We get to take a moment and take a time out and breathe and go into our heart and soul, right? Awakening of the heart, the ignition of the heart. And I so many times have found myself tapping my heart center to ignite it, to awaken it, to spark it, okay? Because that is gonna get us further than the analytical mind ever will. And I know that for sure. All right. Woo! So much passion here this morning, so much fire. And I hope you're feeling that as well, because we have plenty of work here to do together, my friends. Much love, comment, question below, and I will see you here again very soon.